Hi guys, welcome to Learn Electronics Repair. Today I'm going to take a look at a soldering iron. This is the RGS65. It is a small soldering iron. It doesn't require a soldering station. This has an OLED display. You can set the temperature on the display, and it has a USB-C connector. So that's how the soldering iron is powered. It comes in two versions, if you like, which I will show you in a moment. This is quite an inexpensive soldering iron. In the standard package, it comes with just the soldering iron and the tip. And in the deluxe version, you get the stand. And this, which is basically like a helping hand, which holds small PCBs or cables while you're soldering them. It comes with some solder, it doesn't specify what it is, and of course you get the user manual either way. The soldering iron tip is basically a T12, so this is the same wattage as a T12, 65 watt. It's just quite a lot smaller, or should I say shorter, than a standard T12. If you look at the standard one, you'll see that it's maybe 2/3 of the length, a bit less than that. Yeah, but the actual connections are the same. So quite simply, we can put the soldering iron tip. I've actually noticed with this, we need to unscrew this to fit it correctly. So the collar goes over the tip up to this ridge. Then it will fit in properly. So you do have to unfasten the collar to get it to fit. You can't just push it in over the collar as I showed you. Okay, that's now locked in place. It's completely rigid. Before we try the soldering iron, let's have a look how much these cost on AliExpress. Here is the RGS65, and we can see it's quite a small unit, doesn't require a soldering station. It does require a USB-C power lead, so I'm not quite sure how this would be working without it. Maybe that's a little bit of wishful thinking, artistic license. You also might notice that there is a collar or a sleeve that fits on here. It's like a silicone type plastic, but on some of the images it isn't fitted. So it looks like that's actually optional, and we will try it with and without it just to see. The basic soldering iron is in silver and black, or in blue and black. The price is the same, and we're looking at a little less than €35 with free shipping. So this is not an expensive iron. The complete kit, which includes the helping hand, which we'll put together in a moment, the stand, the solder, is €46.50 roughly. So we're paying about €11 or so for the stand. Here are the specifications. So up to 65 watt power. I believe the up to refers to the type of power supply you fit. We can look in a moment. 8-second rapid heating from cold to working temperature. Mentions it uses a USB-C power supply or charger. PD2 or QC3 protocol is supported. Aluminium body. Automatic sleep vibration sensing, other functions. And it says it uses a customized T12 internally heated heating element. It does mention you can use this with an ordinary T12 soldering tip, so we can try that, but it does mention because it's long, if it is used, there'll be a long bare section. Effectively, you may not get the heat transferred properly, and the nut can't be used for tightening. And then it goes on to say, where can I buy the soldering head, or this means soldering tip for sure, that fits. They'll launch dedicated soldering tips in the next 2 weeks. We can just have a look a little bit further down. Power rating. So this will work on 9, 12, 15 and 20 volts. And this is the heating time. So with a 20 volt power supply, 8 seconds, you can see it takes longer on the lower power and you actually get less power out. So probably you will want to use this with a 20 volt power supply. A few notes on the settings. And then we have, of course, the usual advertising. When I was asked to review this, there were no other soldering tips available, but in the few weeks it took to arrive, I can now see that there are some. So these are the tips. We have a BC3 type tip, they call that a RGSC. We have a narrow conical one, it looks like. We have a chisel type. We have a knife type. Or you can buy a set. So interestingly, a set of tips will cost you roughly the same as the soldering iron. At the moment, when you buy it, it comes with a knife tip. Whether other options would be available, I don't know, but it does seem, since all the tips are the same price, it would seem quite reasonable that they would offer that choice. Now let's put it together and let's see how well it works. Let's try this. I'll just switch the power on, RGS65, and it's asking me to press the button. Okay, and it's switched on. And it is certainly heating up very fast. It looks like 300 degrees is the preset temperature, and I'm using a 20 volt power supply. Yeah, 300 is a set. This will be showing the amount of power draw on the power supply as a percentage of the maximum. And I guess this will change. For example, if I put the end of the tip onto the sponge which has water on it, let's just see. Yeah, so you can see the percentage going up. And now it's back to temperature again. Okay, I'm not particularly familiar with using a knife tip. I usually use the BC3 tip, but let's try it. So first of all, let's try and solder a piece of wire to some pad. Even let's go for something difficult like this ground pad. Let's see if we can solder to that. I'll try using the solder that they provided with it first, and let's see how well it works. I'll try attaching a fairly heavy piece of wire. This is a piece of earth wire, because obviously this is where the soldering iron needs more power. In fact, we can actually, I guess, clip this under here. See how handy this holder is at holding your PCB and the wire at the same time. Let's just see. So we have our piece of wire, maybe get out of focus or that. Let's try and solder it. This is the solder that was provided with the soldering iron in this kit. This may be lead-free solder. It feels quite hard. Let's see. So this is at the default temperature, 300. How well does it solder? Well, it isn't even melting the solder. It is melting the solder. It took a little bit of time to get going. Can I put the solder on the wire with this? Yeah, it doesn't work with that solder at 300. Okay. Let's try with some mechanic leaded solder. So this is the leaded solder I normally use. See how that works. And then we'll try adjusting the temperature, I think. That's just stuck on there. Let's try my leaded solder. That melts much better, so this must be lead free. And I can tin the wire with it at the default setting, but it doesn't work very well. I don't think. It's taking quite a bit of time. Okay, normally with my T12 I have it set to 380 degrees, so let's set this to the same. I think we just press the two buttons together, yeah, and then we can alter the temperature. 380. I know in the menu you can change the settings, so it goes up 10 degrees at a time, 5 degrees, 1 degree, whatever you want. I think that's fine at 10 degrees. So okay, so we now have it at 380. Let's see how well this works now. So once again, I'll use the lead-free solder that came with it. Yeah, that's working much better now. And that's tinning just fine. Let's try the board. So this is quite a heavy part of the board. Let's see if we can get enough heat in. It's probably going to be easier if we add some flux. I mean, I have got it, but let's put some flux. This is the Amtech I normally use, NC559. May or may not be original, I honestly don't know. It's from AliExpress. Let's try that. Yeah, that's flowing quite well because it's a large ground plane. Let's try and solder the wire. And this is using the lead-free solder. And it's definitely soldered that. I mean, I can pick that up by the wire, so that's definitely worked. Let's try the other end with some leaded solder. So this is my mechanic solder again. We'll try and tin the wire. Yep, that tins quite well. Although I will say the lead-free solder is working pretty well also. Bit more flux. Bit more solder. Yeah, that's tinned fine. Let's try and solder it. Okay. And we have a strong soldered joint. Again, we can pick the whole thing up by the wire. That's fine. I'm going to compare that with my KSGR T12, just out of interest. So this is my soldering iron, KSGER. BC3 tip, which is what I normally use, and one of the optional ones for this other soldering iron. Let's have a look. Desoldered just fine. I'll add a bit of flux to the other pad on here and we'll solder it back to here. Okay. Solder. Wire. Again, it's soldered well. I can lift the whole thing up with that. So the performance is pretty much the same as my soldering iron, just possibly I'm rather more familiar with the BC3 tip. But other than that, I really can't say there is any difference between this and a standard T12. Let's try desoldering a SMD component. This stand, by the way, works very well. It takes a bit of space up, but it certainly works well. So we'll go for one of these capacitors. I'll turn the board around just to make it easy to work. So the way I would normally desolder something like this would be to add some flux, add some leaded solder, and then come in from the side and desolder it all in one go. There we have some flux then. Some solder. Okay. I'm getting used to using this now. I'm figuring out the different angles to use it. I know some people absolutely swear by the knife tip, and I can somewhat see why. Tweezers, and we'll try and unsolder this. So we should be able to heat up both ends in one go. We don't need two soldering irons. Let's try it. Does it want to desolder? Not easily. There's probably a very heavy ground plane here. Okay, doesn't easily want to desolder that. Try a bit more solder. So I'll get more solder on the tip. This may be a technique thing rather than the soldering iron. I've got a good blob of solder. Let's try again. Yeah, and it came off fine that time. So obviously putting a nice big blob of solder, which is what I do with the BC3 tip, works fine. Let's try another one just to be sure. We'll do that again. So there's one here. Flux. Ready to solder on both ends. Yeah, it's definitely tinned. Again, we'll get a nice amount of solder on the end of there. Get the component. Yeah, it's desoldered just fine, yeah. Okay, so I have to say this is perfectly usable. Does the job pretty much like my BC3. I will just show you for comparison. Same technique, different capacitor. One here. Ready to solder. Both ends. Okay. Tweezers. We get a blob of solder on the end of the tip. There's already quite a big one on there. Let's go. Yeah, off. Clean. Right guys, so let's round up and then let's have a final thoughts and decision. The soldering iron itself then, it's very comfortable to hold, I will tell you that straight away. I think the triangular form factor, or curved triangular, makes this fit into the hand very well and easy to hold, easy to keep the bit at the angle you want it. Obviously the bit can be rotated as well and the locking nut tightens so it stays in position. So I think this is really nicely made, to be quite honest, for a €36 soldering iron with one tip. It'd be nice to see the choice of tips, as all the tips cost the same, but this was the original one they had, so possibly in future there will be options to buy this with a tip of your choice. I would probably have the BC3, and of course it's also nice to own a selection of tips. The tips are more expensive than a standard T12, but they're not like stupidly expensive. And from my experience, T12 tips last a very long time. The BC3 I've used for my videos for the best part of 2 years is still working. It wasn't new when I started making the video, so they seem to last for a long time. The soldering iron stand and this helping hand, it's quite nice. I mean, it works very well as a helping hand. I'm not sure I would use it as a soldering iron stand. There's nothing wrong with it. It holds the soldering iron perfectly in place. It's just that if you are not using it as the helping hand at the moment, it takes up quite a bit of space on the bench. You can take these off, but then it makes it a hassle when you want to use it. You can angle them up higher so they're making less, so they're taking less space horizontally. I'm sure you can tighten the locking nuts, but I find it a little bit inconvenient. If I was buying one, yes, I would buy it with the stand, because for the extra €11 as a helping hand, especially if you're working on something small like foam PCBs, it's an excellent thing to have for €11. Regarding stands, my KSGR, I actually use it with an Antex soldering iron stand. This is not the correct one for it, but I find it works absolutely perfect with it. It sits in there just nice. Okay, and this one does exactly the same. So that we can put in there. The silicone sleeve, you can take this off. I mean, it's cold now, definitely cold. We can take this off, use it without. It doesn't get hot. I noticed there was no heat in here when it was being used, and on some of the photos it wasn't fitted, but personally I would leave it on. I think it gives you a little bit of a better grip on there. It feels in a lot of ways like using the T12. I'll just show you in comparison. So my T12 is actually slightly longer, but the working distance to the tip is slightly shorter. That's why I like this type of handle. I find the shorter working distance means I can hold it much more steadily. The further the working distance from your fingers, the more that any small movements are amplified effectively. Yeah. So this one I would always hold down here somewhere. But having said that, I'm just thinking from the position I keep my fingers, not near the end. This I was tending to hold it nearer to the end, and it's similar. It's similar. It's not that much different from the one I'm used to using. That I like. That I do like. Regards the price, then, I mean, €36 for effectively a T12, albeit you'll have to pay more for the tips at the moment. I think that's good value compared to the cost now of buying a soldering station T12. They've gone up quite a bit in price, like many things have. But the charger or power supply, this is a 3.25 amp at 20 volt. I've had a look. These will set you back about €20. So if you already have one, or you already have a use for one, I'd say this is very good value. If you have to buy one, you need to weigh it up. Yeah, weigh it up. Advantage of this, you can use this portable. There are similar units to this that fit into the cigarette lighter socket in the car, similar sort of price, that will give you suitable power. Yeah, so that is something we can get as well. So this has the portability about it. Really then, I have to say this is a good product, and for the price, especially if you already have a suitable power supply, it's good value. I would use this as a secondary soldering iron. Sometimes it's useful to have one in each hand. You know my thoughts on soldering iron stands, but that is purely my opinion, and I suspect many other people would have a different opinion. The same as soldering iron tips. I prefer the BC3. Many people prefer the knife tip, and I can see why they like them. I still think my choice is better, but I can understand why they like them. Yeah. So there you go, guys. Nice little tool. Certainly if you want to use it mobile, powered from a car battery, without a doubt. It's the old adage, this is horses for courses. If this suits your requirements, then without doubt it's a good product and it works very well. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll see you all soon on another Learn Electronics repair video. Ciao for now, guys.